And you are charged, Assemblyman Hawley, with the task of having to see these issues come up on the Assembly floor, vote on them, and debate them.
Well, you know, it's an age-old adage. We continue in New York to create more and more laws that have more and more fees and are more invasive of our everyday lives and our way of living. By creating more laws, especially when it comes to guns and the rights of gun owners, it doesn't really do much to prevent crimes. We call them outlaws, guys and gals that work outside of the laws of the state of New York or the United States of America. Creating more laws to prevent dangerous people isn't going to work. They operate outside the laws. That's why we call them outlaws. What we need to do is make sure that the laws that we have on the books are enforced in a fashion that's appropriate to safeguard our way of life. And so many of these are overreactive, really appealing to a certain segment of society and causing them to be afraid of things that they ought not be afraid of. They're conjuring up ideas in people's heads that are just ludicrous.
Mr. Aldstadt mentions support for legislation that would get tough on criminals who use guns. You also support legislation having to do with increased training for individuals to, you know, let them know the proper way to use a weapon.
Yes, there's a particular bill I'm in support of right now that has to do with training. New York State has some of the most strictest handgun controls of any state in the nation. If you do not have a handgun license, you're not even allowed to handle a gun, even under a handgun, even under certified instructors in a range setting, until after you get a license. There's an exception for that. If you're 14 to 20 years old and you're under supervision, then you can get instruction in safety training, hands-on on the range. But once you're 21 years old, you're not allowed to touch it until after you're given the license. So it's very much akin to saying, well, we're not going to let you learn how to drive the car until after we give you your driver's license. So we're trying to get that upper age limit removed, so it's 14 or up, that you can be under supervision, that you can handle it prior to getting a license.
The package of legislation that's going to be hitting the floor today is going to have bills in it, I'm going to guess, that you don't like. Can you give us a for instance or some kind of example of what types of themes do you see in this legislation that makes gun ownership restrictive or takes away some of the rights that you think the sportsmen in the state, for example, it might be a hardship for them, or maybe maybe take away the possibility to use weapons in that way?
Well, there's a whole laundry list of new restrictions they want to add. One bill would revoke all lifetime pistol licenses and force pistol license holder to renew every 5 years, paying additional fees, giving the authorities additional opportunities to put restrictions on the permits. There is a bill that would ban any .50 caliber rifle, which are rifles that are very expensive. They're used for high-end target shooters. There's no record or data showing that these guns are used in crime at all. They cost thousands of dollars, but they want to ban them because they look scary, or it makes a good soundbite. There's a bill to increase what they call assault weapons, which are semi-automatic sporting rifles. There was a federal ban for a number of years, which expired. During the entire time of that federal ban, there was never any evidence that it did anything to reduce crime. All it does is it criminalizes honest, peaceable New York citizens for owning their property.
And that, I guess, is the argument that you bring to the floor of the State Assembly.
Every year. Is this one of the most difficult states in terms of Second Amendment rights and ownership of weapons of all 50 states?
In fact, New York State is one of the few states that has no right to keep and bear arms in the state constitution. And we have a precedent at the appellate court level that says that the Second Amendment does not apply to New York State.
Only in New York.
So technically you have no right to keep and bear arms in New York. Everything is granted by the legislature. Now we're looking for a decision from a Supreme Court case has been heard, and we're waiting for the decision. It's McDonald versus the City of Chicago. And we're expecting, once that decision comes down, that the Second Amendment is going to be incorporated to the states like every other amendment in the Bill of Rights. Your right to free speech, your right to have an attorney peaceably assemble. All those things are enforced against the states. The Second Amendment has not been to date.
Steve Hawley, we're out of time. To wrap up, this is a great example of an organization coming to you, letting you know what's on their minds. Sounds like S.C.O.P.E's doing a pretty good job with that.
They are, and one of the most important parts of being an elected official is listening to the people that you represent and then reflecting their wishes. And that's what we're doing here today.
Stephen Aldstadt of S.C.O.P.E. Pleasure to meet you, sir. Steve Hawley, always a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for letting us know part of the discussions taking place here at the state capitol this week. We want to thank you folks, of course, for stopping by and spending your time with us. We'll hope to see you soon for our next edition of Assembly Calendar.